Hello, today we're going to do Module 5, Lesson 1. First one, we're going to specify and partition a whole into equal parts, identifying and counting unit fractions using concrete models. Do you know what that really means? We are going to explore and count fractions. Woohoo! Now, please note, you're going to need your ruler and the strip of paper that I gave you. And if you are not one of my students, you need to get a 12-inch by 1-inch piece of paper, cut it into that shape, it's a rectangle, and then you can follow along with our lesson. Okay. Now, we're going to start with an application problem. Get my pen. Now, this is a picture of your ruler. Your ruler should have inches on one side, and if you flip it over, you should have centimeters on the other side. Okay? Now, if for some reason it says millimeters, it would look the same. It says millimeters instead, but that's because each one of these lines is actually a millimeter. Okay? So, if I were to use a ruler that had both centimeters and inches on it, so we're looking at your ruler, or my picture of a ruler. Which is the larger unit, an inch or a centimeter? Okay, I need to change my color here. Let's do blue. Okay, an inch. Now this is a blown up version of a ruler, isn't it? Because an inch is not really this big. This is much bigger than an inch. It's magnified. From here, from the 0 point all the way to the mark where it says 1 is 1 inch. From the 0 point to the first line here, we have 1 centimeter. Can you see that on your ruler? So which unit is larger? Is 1 inch larger or 1 centimeter? Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Easily. 1 inch is a lot bigger than 1 centimeter. In fact, if you look 1 centimeter, it's just a little bit less than half of an inch. All right. Which would yield a greater number when measuring something? Yield means give out. So which would have, if I were to measure with inches, or if I were to measure with centimeters, which one would I have the larger number? So for instance, let's say I take my piece of paper. You can even take your piece of paper, and I hold my ruler up to it, and I'm measuring it. Okay? Always start you always start with zeros. So you put your 0 right on the very, very edge of your paper. So if I'm counting in inches, maybe I'll have 11.5 inches, right? How many would I have in centimeters? Would I have more than 11.5 or less? Have a lot more, wouldn't I? So the smaller the unit, the greater the yield, the more numbers you have, right? Whenever I think of yield, I think of crops. So if I have a high yield crop, I'm going to get a lot of vegetables. If I have a low yield crop, I'm not going to get very much at all. So yield means how much you're going to get as far as an amount or numbers, okay? So a larger unit gets a lower yield. A smaller unit gets a much higher yield. We have higher numbers, a lot more than 11.5 centimeters, isn't it? If you were to measure the side of your paper. Okay, moving on. Get your paper. This is my paper. And get your ruler. Now, if you notice, your paper and your ruler are exactly the same length. Now this right here is my ruler. I just don't have all my numbers on it. Okay. With your ruler lined up so that your 0 edge is touching the very, very edge of your paper, please put a dot where 6 inches are. So we're looking at inches. So right here would be about 6. Okay, so here's my 6 inches. Okay, put your dot on your paper at 6 inches and then draw a line straight down. Okay, what did I make? Well, what is this part right here? From here to here, what is this called? This part of this hole? because this is my whole piece of paper. What is this part of the whole? This part of this whole is 1/2, isn't it? Okay, so let's count our halves. We have 1/2, 2 halves. So 2 halves make a whole. Okay, so there's my 1/2, and this is 2 halves when I count over here. Okay? Now, with your ruler, mark. Oh, wait a minute. I have one more question before I have you mark anything. How do you know if this half is equal to this half? How do you know if these two parts of my whole are equal? How do you know? Well, what could you do to test it? You could fold it in half. Fold your paper in half. Want to give it a try? Go ahead, fold your paper in half. See if they line up. If you did it right, they should. This should be the fold line right here. Or if I were to measure, this would be 6 inches. And if I start measuring again here, this would be 6 inches. That's a way to tell that they're exactly equal. Halves have to be equal. Okay. Now, with your ruler this time, please mark it find 3 inches. So 3 inches is going to be about here. And put a dot, 3 inches, and draw your line. Then I want you to find 9 inches. Put your dot, measure it, and draw your line. What did I make now? How many pieces do I have of my whole? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if I have 4 pieces, I'm going to go to red. If I have 4 pieces, suddenly I have cut it into fourths. So let's count our fourths. This would be 1/4. This would be 2/4. This would be 3/4. See, and I'm counting in between my lines. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. This would be 4/4. So there's 4/4 in one whole. Now I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you know if each one of these fourths are equal? What can you do to test it? Well, you could fold the half in half, couldn't you? And if you folded the half in half, this line right here would be your fold line. Or we could take your ruler and we can measure, and this would be 3 inches, and then we can move our ruler over, make this be 0, and this would be 3 inches. And then we can move our ruler over, and this would be 3 inches. And this would be 3 inches, right? That would verify to us that these are all equal. Okay, now I'm going to erase this. When I erase this, I want you to turn your paper over to the other side. Okay? Now, my pencil back. Come on, pencil. There we go. I'm getting blue again. This time on the back of your strip of paper, please find, let's see, I want you to find 4 inches. So hang on, let me mark my ruler here. So this was 6, and right here was 3, and right here was 9, and I know this is 12. Okay, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is my guess. Okay, now, so I'm making my ruler. You don't have to make this because you already have a ruler in your hand. Okay, now this time, please measure and mark 4 inches. Okay, so I'm marking. I'm going to put my dot. Then I'm going to draw my line straight down at 4 inches. Then I want you to do the same with 8 inches. So I'm putting my ruler, keeping my ruler edges together with my paper so that it's exactly on 0 over there. And I'm putting a dot on 8 inches. Okay, now what did I do? I've now divided up my whole into how many parts? I now have 3 parts, right? Okay, so if I have 3 parts, I have now broken them into thirds. So let's count our thirds. From here to here we have 1/3. From here to here we have 2/3. From here to here, we have 3/3. So how many thirds are in a whole? Well, there's 3. 1, 2, 3. How can we tell if each one of these is equal? They must be equal if we're dividing them up or partitioning them. See, I partitioned it, I broke it up, or I divided it up into equal parts. Fractions are equal parts. Okay, so how can I tell? What would be a way that I could tell that this third equals this third? It's exactly the same size. Well, I could measure, right? I could take my ruler, and I know that this is 4 inches, so I could put my ruler over here, and I could measure here, and if this is 4 inches, then they're equal, right? We'll give it a try. Is it equal? It should be. It should be pretty close if it's not. Okay, now, put your ruler back over here by 0. Right here by 0. And let's do something else. One more thing here. If I can get a red pen. There we go. I want red. Okay, now this time, I would like you to find 2 inches and mark 2 inches. So here's 2 inches. I'm going to put a dot. Maybe. And then I'm going to draw my line. And then I want you to do it on 6 inches. So here's 6 inches. Put my dot. And then I want you to do it on 10 inches. So here's 10 inches. Measure your 10. Put your dot. Draw your straight line down. Okay. Now, how many parts do I have in my whole? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts, which means that I have now partitioned my paper into sixths. So this is how you write sixths. It's hard to say. It's a TH. Sixths. Okay, so let's count our sixes. Sixths. We have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 6/6. And that would be 1/6 is in between each of our lines here, right? Okay, so how many sixes are in a whole? 6, because we divided or we partitioned it into 6 pieces. Now, here's my question again. How can you verify, how can you know if each one of these sixes are equal? Because if it's a fraction, it must be an equal segment or an equal section or equal partition. This is a partition. So how do you know if they're equal? How do you know that this is equal to this one? Let me change colors. Let me go to black. Okay, so how do I know? Well, I could measure, right? Or I could take my thirds and fold my third in half. If I folded my third in half, I would have my fold line right here, right? And then if I folded it exactly in half, both sides are equal, right? Or I could measure, and I found out that this is 2 inches. Right, from here to here, this is 2 inches. Well, I can move my ruler right here, and I can find out that from here to here, it's 2 inches too. Why don't you try that? Make sure. Make sure I'm right. What do you think? Is it equal? It should be. It should be very close if it's not. All right. Good. Now, good luck with your homework, and I'll see you tomorrow. Fractions are always fun. I'll see you later.